I recently posted a video about the importance of including younger goths in our events and not making them strictly for adults, as opposed to when I was younger when things were a lot more inclusive. So as time has passed, an issue has arisen where there's been a massive decline in events catering to anyone under the age of 21, and now there are very few dotted around the US, and I was kind of none the wiser because I'm over the age of 21, so it's not really anything that I've had to deal with, but in any event, what the hell? Goth teenagers need to have their fun fix too, right? So there's no reason that anyone should be alienated or robbed of irreplaceable experiences, and that video received such an informative and helpful number of responses from all of you. Many of you have brought to my attention some 18 plus as well as all ages events venues, and one in particular in Maryland that will allow all ages to attend goth concerts. Scary Lady Sarah has an event in Chicago which she successfully run for more than 20 years now, and it's an 18 plus event called Nocturna. She also has a shoegaze dream pop night called Shimmer, a post-punk night, and a bi-monthly event which is all super inclusive. All links I will put in the description. Expect more links for all ages and 18 plus events as I find them in future videos, just to help you baby bats navigate these events. The video you're about to see is a repost, and it's a pretty useful one at that. It features real footage, real honest-to-God footage from an actual goth house party in the 90s here in New York, just to show you how we did it. Crap, does that make me nostalgic. A great alternative to a goth night is hosting a party of your own, and it makes things a lot easier. And it's a lot easier than you think. And it's not just for teenagers who might be in an area with no goth events or just want to do something more low-key. So Aytakk posted a great comprehensive article on just how to carry this out, so check the link in the description and have a read. But just bear in mind that these are instructions and experiences from an Australian goth where the drinking age there is 18. So if you're a teenager, a few tips here won't apply if you're in the US, because we're one of the countries where the drinking age is a little bit older than most. I think we're one of 11, I want to say. But these are definitely worth trying out. And he even suggests hacks that will help you teenagers convince the most skeptical of parents to allow their home to be converted into a teenage goth party. All of that being said, please enjoy this video. Thanks. I said in one of my videos that sometimes to know where you are, it's good to really know where you came from. And it's there that really brought me to this whole line of thinking. And I was watching old footage on YouTube of goth and its inception, which YouTube is really a treasure trove of. And there's one that I particularly like. It's Club Stratus, and it's a club in California, which was strictly no alcohol, and they played such a very interesting, diverse mix of music, everything from Tones on Tail to Michael Jackson, and there was a very large group of goths that really congregated amongst the myriad of different sort of alternative subcultures that were there. And this was back before goth had a name. It was a time when they all had this abiding love for this new sound rising out of punk. You have the music, and then you have this dark and macabre aesthetic that brought all of these people together looking to celebrate and have fun with whatever the hell this thing is, and maybe not even looking to start anything, at least not initially, but just have fun with it because they like it. One question that I'm asked a lot is, how can I find people like me? So what I'll do is I'll answer your question with a question. How did all of these people in the 80s find each other and start this whole subculture without having the tools that we have available to us today? When I was younger, goth was always a separate entity, but all of the freaks, we stuck together, whether you're hardcore metal, punk, grunge, or whatever sort of alternative out of the norm variety that you had identified with. We were lucky growing up in New York because there was a never-ending supply of clubs, but sometimes you were broke, sometimes you didn't have a ride, and sometimes you had parents who decided to randomly give this parenting thing a try and question their child going to a club, even if it was fucking teen night. My parents. Either parent or don't. You gotta pick one or the other. God, whatever the reason, it felt like your whole world was ending when you couldn't make it out and your friends were going. Worst feeling ever. Clubs were always our weekend goals, but something that was a very prized event among us was the house party. Jam-packed with conversations about the meaning of life with a complete stranger who managed to become your best friend in a matter of just a few hours. When parents went out of town, it was a time to rejoice because this meant a house party was imminent. The entire alternative subculture would show up sometimes. I mean, from different counties and different boroughs even. And in many ways, they were more fun than clubs because there was just so many different layers to them. In clubs, you might find yourself confined to your group and, speaking a bit randomly, but it made conversing a little bit more difficult because the music was so loud. So you'd randomly break off to dance to a song, but for the most part, you were really a wallflower. At a party, you were a lot more interactive with people because they were just designed that way, and you made a lot of new connections, and something you didn't see a lot of was this, because there were no cell phones. Everybody had something to bring to the table, and at the time, everyone was a DJ, so, Joe had a strobe light, and then you had Mike, who had, say, the fog machine. Everybody had mixers, and we all had an endless supply of CDs. So in a lot of ways, our music would really rival a lot of the set lists in the New York City clubs, and we were playing pretty much anything that we really wanted to anyway, so you didn't have to sit through any of the crap that everybody else wanted to hear. People would break off into groups, and there were a ton of different conversations going on with old friends, new faces, and different people would drift in and out, visiting different groups, joining in different conversations for a spell, and through all of it, this sort of magical thing would happen, and despite maybe not knowing a lot of people there, or just maybe not knowing a few faces, you still had this intense sense of belonging.
It's a picture. It's proud of you want? Watch it for her, man. Give me the eye all day. Hey, dude.
I'm gonna take my
Motherfucker, get away with that thing. Get. I know it's gonna go flying at me.
I know, let's knock that beer over. I'm gonna see it happen.
Somebody's gonna Oh, here they come.
Who? Oh!
And these discussions that we would have, these were not your regular run-of-the-mill surface chit-chat. These were some digging down deep, laying your soul out on the table, and some people admitting to serious hardships, to the paranormal and the afterlife. In someone's backyard, laying on the grass, looking up at the stars, sharing cigarettes, and nursing the most foul-tasting 40-ounce malt liquor, partly because it's cheap and in part because it just looked cool. I actually never drank because I'd seen one too many people perform about an hour and a half of the dumb fuck ballet, finishing it off with an ugly cry while projectile vomiting, so just wasn't really for me. Since I never drank, nor did I ever smoke weed or took drugs of any kind, this somehow got me appointed as the crew spokesperson whenever a parent or an authority figure needed speaking to. But I digress. So there you are, it's stupid o'clock and you're lying there in the grass with the sounds of goth and industrial music coming from the house and distant chatter and laughter and some random sentence being shouted from somewhere that has everyone just stop and crack up.
Of course it doesn't have balls. It's a betta fish. It creates drag.
So you're there half wishing that the night would just never end, and then the other half should you be spending the night wondering where the hell you were going to sleep. There would be people sleeping in bathtubs underneath the dining room table and hammocks in the backyard. People slept everywhere. I've been lamenting a lot lately. I'm sure it's very apparent in my videos about my teen years in the 90s and life in the early 2000s because things are just so vastly different now. It's just such a culture shock to me because the younger generation is completely content to interact socially online, whereas everyone else who isn't part of this generation find it really difficult to accept. Coming from a place that was so passionate, so tangible, so visceral, and even though I'm still interacting, it still feels very incomplete because I still find myself sort of starved for human contact. I know when I tell stories and I really go off on my tangents, it can sound a lot like everything in the 80s and 90s were the best and everything today sucks. And that's really not the case. As far as we're concerned, and by we I mean myself and anybody that was really there, the modern conveniences are fucking great. We can listen to any song we want in an instant without having to go through the 3-month wait from ordering it from a catalog, having to pay for it via money order. It's a huge pain in the ass. We can map ourselves anywhere. Hello, Yelp. I love to eat. YouTube can walk you through anything from baking a vegan chocolate cake to building a miniature house. But the part that actually involved leaving the house, the part where actual physical human interaction is taken away, is where the culture shock took place. It actually makes me wonder, if we took a baby bat and exposed them to a complete 90s weekend, would it result in sensory overload? Or would it be like taking a kid to an amusement park, or me to a sushi place, where you're overcome with this psychotic joy? Or, maybe a little bit of column A, a little bit of column B. So back to these questions that I get the most. How can I find more people like me? Will things ever be like the way that they used to be? Or what if there are no clubs near me? What if I'm just too young? A lot of the questions that are pertaining to wanting to know if things are ever going to be the way that they were are coming from the younger generation. You baby bats who are watching the old footage, listening to the old stories, you're listening to the music, and you're getting hold of old literature. I wish I had an answer for you, because I'd love to know myself. I can't really give you an answer, but I can give you a recommendation. So maybe this whole thing, the whole gothic subculture, the way that it is now versus how it used to be, maybe this is all cyclical. Maybe we have to start from the beginning. My recommendation to you is to take a leaf out of our books and throw a house party. Turn out the lights, light some candles, create some killer playlists, dress like you mean it, move some furniture out of the way, and turn your living room into a dance floor. Pro tip: parents are generally more receptive to the idea if you confine things to the basement, if you have one, because less noise and mess for them, and party bonus for you, because it's really easy to goth out a basement. You gotta start somewhere. Hey, and if they can do it in the 80s, we could totally pull it off.